Hello, I'm Azai. Welcome back to Harmonic Reflections. I haven't gone to the gym yet. I think I'll be going to the gym after I finish both my recording sessions here. I'll be meeting up with the guy who's going to be purchasing my folding bike later on, probably at 9 p.m. And before that, I'll be coaching my friend at probably 7 once I'm done at the gym. So the times should align pretty well, right? Today is just some cardio session for me, so I only got like an hour 15 minutes to do the cardio, and that's it. So yeah, here I am recording some more stuff before I do some of my daily activities. So let me just do the last episode recap before we start off here. So in the previous episode, we got together in our room, right? Was it our room or was it just the living room? I think it was just the living room in our lodge. So, me, I kind of forgot the name of the main character. Aruto, right? Aruto, and then Sari here, Tachibana, and then Angie. They both came, so Angie also came with some snacks, and we just got together and had some fun. Probably just talking about miscellaneous stuff, right? But then, at some point, I forgot who mentioned like the topic, but it got Aruto into thinking very seriously. I think it might have been Angie, and because Angie doesn't really know anything about Aruto right now. But I assume that Tachibana probably knows because supposedly Tachibana and Sari here are childhood friends and they came from the same town, which is here in Kamakura, I think. So yeah, after that we basically had a what do you call it? Like I guess a confessional with Sari, talking about our past, about the reason why we couldn't hear the music, the piano music, and it was alright. Like, Aruto was just telling us about the trauma that he has, about what it is that happens when you hear the piano music, right? He was in a position where he was a child again, and whenever he looks like around, there would be faces of people disappointed, and whenever he looks at his hands, it would be bloody. And yeah, that seems to be the recurring nightmare that Aruto has whenever he hears the music. The piano music. And, sometimes it makes him traumatic enough that he would be paralyzed, right? But then Sari kept asking about, the actual reason, about when it was that it started happening, what it is that he wants in life, and Aruto seems to say that it's the compass in his life again. He wants to have, I assume it's something similar to what I am thinking. He wants life to have meaning, right? Calling it a compass is a bit weird, in my opinion. But, I guess a compass does direct you towards some way of living. I guess that's the implication. But yeah, what I did not like about the whole scene, though, was the fact that Sari here, she's just way too convenient of a character. Like, I get that Aruto, or I get people like Aruto is very... What's the word I'm looking for? They're very common, guys. People that have traumatic experiences, they're actually a lot more common than you think. Of course, the degree of the traumatic experiences is also going to be different, right? Some have it worse than others. Some have it till they die. Some never actually, face their trauma. And, sometimes living like that is okay. And that's mostly because it depends on the person themselves, right? Whether or not they want to face that trauma. But what I don't like about Sari here is the fact that even though Aruto does want to face the trauma, it always seems like Sari is, someone who coddles him just at the perfect time. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I really do not like Sari's character. Probably because, like I said, in my own experiences, whenever I was at my most vulnerable, there was no one like her, And in the real world, I do think that it's very, what's the word? It's very improbable that someone like her would exist. It's very unrealistic, right? But yeah, this is the next day after we did that scene. So yeah, I guess let's see where this is gonna head. I really probably will not like the sorry route, judging by my, initial impressions of her right now. Not even initial impressions, like my impressions in general, I guess. Because this isn't really an initial impression anymore after I played for about 5 or 6 hours right now. I think 5 hours. Let me take a look at Steam. 4.5, there we go. The next morning, the karate club gathered in the dining hall after finishing their morning practice. In just one day, the awkwardness of being the one in charge of preparing and putting away their meals had already begun to fade. The members too had stopped paying attention to my presence. I felt like I'd somehow become their manager or something. Once the members had eaten and gotten back to practice, a sleepy Amane-san entered the dining hall.
ごめん、朝の準備全部任せて大変だったでしょ。
Amane-san said, yawning. Compared to the job I had around this time 2 years ago, this doesn't even count as getting up early.
何そのバイト。あ、新聞配達か。
Yeah.
興味いるのね。新聞配達する高校生なんて。新聞なんて誰が読んでるの？
Old people? Responsible adults, probably. Not really. News, newspaper, everything is full of, like, people have their own agenda if you read those. If you really want to form your own opinion, you gotta kind of scour through the actual information yourself. But then again, all information to some degree always are biased. So it's up to your critical thinking. Despite my claim, I'd hardly ever seen anyone actually reading one back when I was delivering them. Amane-san let out another big yawn.
見に行くんでしょ？空手部の練習。
Yeah, I thought I'd drop by after this. She blinked slowly, twirling her hair around her index finger, then said,
私も行く。
Huh?
興味あるから。いいでしょ別に。うちの施設なんだし。
We made our way to the small gym. Even outside, I could already hear their spirited voices. With Amane-san leading the way, the disciplined chorus of voices grew louder and louder. I peeked inside through the gap in the sliding door. The advisor was right there, leaning against the wall.
ちょっと覗いてもいいですか？
Amane-san asked the advisor, who nodded slightly and motioned us over to the wall. Inside, the members had split into pairs, with one bracing a thick pad against their chest. The other would launch their whole body forward, driving powerful punches into the pad. Tachibana was paired with Akari-senpai, the upperclassman who had been driving the bus. Oh, okay. When Tachibana-san's high kick struck the pad, a thunderous smack rang through the practice area. Wait, Akari-senpai is just a third-year upperclassman? I thought she was an alumnus. It sounded like an explosion. Pat still braced in her arms, Akari-senpai explained something to Tachibana as she demonstrated the form of the kick for her. Her leg lifted in a steady arc, reaching the level of her face. The explanation didn't quite reach me, but Tachibana's spirited response did. She drove her kick into the pad once more, setting off another explosive smack. Anyone taking that kick unprotected would be done for. Nice one, Eri, Akari-senpai said cheerfully. Tachibana gave a small nod, her expression still serious. Beside me, still leaning against the wall, Amane-san began to speak.
あの人、ただの運転手じゃなかったんだね。あれも先生？
No, I think she's an alum. Yeah, see? I turned my gaze towards Angie. The two younger male members seemed to be newcomers. Angie was coaching them, pad in hand. As I gazed at his gentle profile from afar, a sharp low smack reached my ears. It was the sound of Tachibana's kick slamming into the pad. I shifted my gaze in that direction. Her intense gaze was locked on a single point. Not a single straight thought could be seen in her. Without so much as a wind-up, Tachibana's right leg shot up. The next instant, it crashed against the pad in front of her. It was as though time itself had skipped, leaving only the moments before and after the kick. It was my first time watching karate practice, and I didn't know much about the rules or competitions. But even so, I was hooked the entire time. Without a word, Amane-san and I watched Tachibana's earnest expression. It felt as if time itself had vanished from this space. Perhaps what really moves people is the sight of someone devoting their entire being to face a challenge head-on. Maybe. I could see that happening. I could see myself admiring people like that. In my mind, Tachibana's profile overlapped with Tokyo's. I've always liked watching Tokyo practice. Though I couldn't hear the piano, Tokyo would still let me watch him practice from time to time. In that moment, Tachibana's expression mirrored Tokyo's as he faced the piano. There wasn't a shred of distraction in sight. The sides of their faces eventually coalesced. Am I saying that right? Into yet another person's. It was Amane-san, facing the piano in the multi-purpose hall. Even then, I couldn't hear the piano. But still, I could tell that she was giving it her all. As I traced that memory, my fingers began to stir and spring into motion. My 10 fingers desperately chased after Amane-san's performance, which I couldn't even perceive. As if telling me something. I turned my gaze to Amane-san's profile beside me. She held her usual composure, eyes focused on a single spot. Toward Tachibana. Another sharp smack rang out. I too turned my eyes toward her.
エリって本当に強くなったんだね。
She said quietly. And so, the karate club's morning practice came to an end. I mean, when you're stronger physically, that doesn't necessarily mean you're stronger mentally. You might train your body, but if you don't train your mind, you're still going to be, weak. What was supposed to be just a quick peek stretched into us staying until right before lunch. At present, the lodge only had 3 staff members, Amane-san, the owner, and me. When I saw the karate club starting to tidy up out of the corner of my eye, Amane-san and I hurried back to the dining hall. As usual, the owner was cheerful and easygoing as he prepared the food. Amane-san and I hurried into the kitchen to ready tableware for roughly 20 people. Today's lunch was thick slices of ginger pork and red miso soup. Ooh, ginger pork sounds delicious. Never actually ate ginger pork, I believe. So I'm not sure. Because I usually eat pork in Chinese dishes, right? So sweet and sour pork. And then like the soy sauce pork. And then like the salty one. And then especially the grilled pork. Not grilled. What was it? The, chashu and like shobak. Which is like, I don't know what shobak is really. Is it grilled? I don't think it's grilled, but it's damn tasty. Yeah, like roasted, I guess. It's roasted pig. Where the skin is like super crunchy and stuff. There was also a hearty Neapolitan pasta on the side. The meal was appetizing enough to tempt anyone, whether they were in a sports club or not. So pasta and then a main dish. I mean, pasta is a main dish. And then we got like pork and then miso soup on the side. Kind of a weird combination, to be honest. Of the miso soup. The pasta and the pork seems okay because the pork is like something that you can just put in the pasta. But miso soup along with it is kind of weird. The owner smiled as the big frying pan sizzled. He must have really loved cooking. I wouldn't be surprised if he became the owner of this lodge just so he could serve food. Once we finished scrambling to set the table, it was finally lunchtime for the karate club. Just as I caught my breath, I noticed someone beckoning me over. It was the girl who had snapped at Tachibana yesterday. Facing her was Tachibana. Worried something might be wrong, I hurried over. Why would she beckon me over?
合宿所に偶然居合わせたモズミ君。アキ、やめてよ。
I'm called Mozumi Aruto. I actually forgot my family name. Tachibana cut in from beside me. The ever disgruntled girl turned to her.
これエリにも言っときたかったんだけどさ、いいんだよ別に。結果を出すために必要なことなら合宿の場所を好きに決めてくれたって、そこに彼氏呼んだっていいよ。別に害はないし。だから彼氏じゃないよ、アルトは。
Tachibana let out a weary sigh.
でもインターハイの前にいてほしかったんでしょ。だから私たちここで合宿してるんだよね。
Maybe. Tachibana glanced up at me.
私エリのこと一選手としては尊敬してる。でもさ、夜にこそこそ抜け出して彼氏と会うのはさすがにやりすぎじゃない？
Is it really affecting her performance though? If it's not, can you shut the fuck up? This is going into personal territory, you know? If my performance at the training sessions are still okay, why don't you just shut the fuck up, Aki?
チームのことないがしろにしすぎだよ。だから首相としては認めてない。
I mean, I guess that's a fair retort though. If it was just myself, then that was okay, right? But if she is the captain and she needs to up the morale of everyone, that's actually a fair complaint. That's fair criticism, okay. The disgruntled club member looked up at me.
ごめんね、モスミ君。それだけ言っておきたかったの。あなたに恨みは全然ないんだけど、私たちここに合宿に来てる。しかも全国大会に向けてコンディションを整えるために。それだけはあなたも忘れないでいてくれる？
I mean, this is the reason why I don't like sports in general or any sort of club in general. I am definitely an individualistic kind of person. If I were to have to rely on other people, I wouldn't be comfortable doing so. You know. Say that there's a team competition, right? And if I were doing good, and then I'd have to have 2 more people that compete with me as a team. While I'm doing good, I have to rely on the other 2 people to do good too, right? I am not comfortable doing that. I'd rather just be judged based on my own performance, and that's it. I'm very individualistic, as you can probably tell.
エリの彼氏としてさ。だから彼氏じゃないってば。何も知らないくせに余計なこと言わないで。
Tachibana cried out. Her voice was clear and firm, cutting through the clamor of the dining hall. Silence fell. Every gaze was fixed on the 3 of us.
ごめん、アルト。アキも。ごめん。
I mean, she is being annoying though by, you know, she keeps saying that even though we already told her not to. Tachibana buried her face in her hands. Her last words were muffled. I couldn't quite catch them. Silence lingered, and the air grew heavy.
こんなことになるんならさ、エリ。なんで合宿の場所ここにしたの？自業自得だよね。同情しないよ。
God, you respect me, my ass. This is some venomous words that you're telling me. Tachibana sighed deeply into her hands before lifting her face.
わかってる。いらないよ、同情なんて。私がここを選んだのは勝つため。それは結果でちゃんと示す。だからそれまでは黙ってて。首相として認めなくていいから、せめて黙って見てて。
The club member Aki shot Tachibana a dissatisfied look, but didn't argue.
いただきます。
Tachibana said loudly, then picked up her bowl and began eating her rice. I thought we got Neapolitan. Or maybe you can either get rice or that for, you know, your carbs. It would make sense to have the Neapolitan as a side, I guess, if people are still hungry. That night, Angie dropped by our log house again like it was the most natural thing in the world. He also brought snacks with him like before. On the night before camp, I could picture Angie stuffing his bag with snacks, his heart pounding with excitement.
かわいいやつらなんだよ。二人とも1年生。
Angie spoke cheerfully. He was probably talking about the 2 younger guys he'd been coaching this morning. No second years.
そうなんだよ。2年がぽっかり空白。
I mean, if I was a high school student, I'm not interested in sports whatsoever. It was really weird of me to actually join the choir club too back in the day. I enjoyed it though, at least when I was a first year. When I started becoming a second year, I stopped going because at that point, the third years, like our coaches basically, the captains are kind of not really there anymore. So I am delegated to having to coach the first years, and I'm like, yeah, no thanks. And only one third year too.
うん。
How come only the guys are so weak?
知らねえよ。ずっとそうなんだからしょうがないだろ。
No, you can actually change that if you want to.
指導してた先輩がいたろ。あの人の代だって強かったの女子だけだし。
So, doesn't mean you can't change that. I recalled the sight of Akari senpai taking on Tachibana's kicks during practice earlier. She was small in stature, yet every part of her seemed densely built. Because, you know, if the guys are actually stronger, let's be real, guys. Guys, physically, are stronger than females. And if they are stronger in this sport, the females can actually get stronger too by practicing against the guys instead of girls too. If it were me, I probably would have gone flying along with the pad. Yet her body's center didn't even budge an inch. They call her Akari senpai, right? Is she an alum?
そう。都築あかり先輩。スターだよ。ここ10年でぶっちぎりの強さだった。
From what I saw in practice, that star alum devoted all her attention to coaching Tachibana. I couldn't help but wonder how that looked to the rest of the club. Tachibana's burdens as captain never seemed to let up.
まあ、それくらい伝統的に女子が強いってこと。
That just means that she's also training the stars, right? She's also training someone that's better. She can clearly see that everyone else might not be as good as Tachibana. So instead of, you know, trying to... Here's the way I see it. When someone is really good, instead of trying to complain to them and make them, you know, lose motivation and feel like it's unfair, why not try being good yourself? And then let other people acknowledge you, you know? That's always my stance when it comes to stuff like this. Like, people always envy the strong, right? People always envy the people that are better than them. But instead of trying to achieve that level of perfection, they keep complaining about stuff instead of actually trying to... Instead of trying to work hard to achieve that sort of, like, level. Angie said, tossing a mushroom-shaped chocolate snack into his mouth. It gave off a light, pleasant crunch. Didn't you ever think about joining another club, Angie? You're pretty athletic, right?
まあ、そうだけど、子供の頃からずっとやってたし、空手。立花みたいにスポーツ推薦取れるほどではないけど。いや、男子もそれなりには強いのよ。女子ほどではないってだけで、練習の厳しさだって同じなんだし。
Then how come it's just the girls who are strong?
知らないよ、そんなの。俺に聞くなよ。強くなろうと6年間、頑張りはしたよ。
No regrets? Angie folded his arms, thought for a moment, then nodded.
ないな。
He leaned back and spread his legs. I rested my cheek against my hand on the table. The scent of wood and snacks hung in the air. Hey, is Tachibana okay?
大丈夫って何が？
Angie turned to face me. She was getting chewed out back there. That girl was from our year, right?
ああ、原山な。あいつ内心だぞ。6年間一緒なんだから顔くらい知ってるだろう。
An internal? What does that mean? 6 whole years, so ever since middle school, I'm guessing? She does look familiar. Harayama-san, huh? Students who entered through the middle school entrance exam were internal admits. Well, admits? I think that should be admittance. Yeah, I do think that some of the not that really abbreviations, but are admits a thing? Like, even alum, those sort of words I feel like are very uncommon, and I don't know whether or not they're real words. I still understand them, of course, but seeing them and reading them just felt a bit off. No offense to you, Robert. Well, those who came through the high school entrance exam were external admits. At school, we called them internals and externals.
まあ
Angie stared blankly up at the ceiling as he went on.
な原山からしたら後から入部してきた立花に首相取られたようなもんだからな
So she's jealous then.
単純に言えばそうなんのかなっていうかアルトは知らなかったの俺たちがここに合宿に来るって
I had no idea.
じゃあ本当に偶然そんなことあるか
Yeah, probably not. I said with a wry smile. Angie watched me quietly as I forced a smile. Amane-san had brought me here so I could face my past. The disgruntled club member, or rather Hariyama, said the training camp location had been chosen entirely at Tachibana's discretion. There is no doubt that everything began on that day of the school festival. But it's only been a couple of months since then, right? But I guess seeing Sari must have, must have been when the clock ticked, right? She was already preparing since back then, yeah. But where and how was I supposed to begin? While I wrestled with how to begin, Angie simply waited. On the day of the school festival, I met that girl Amane-san. He knew that. I decided to lay out the facts I knew to Angie, plain and simple. And on that same day, she invited me to work here. Tachibana and Amane-san are childhood friends, so Tachibana probably already knew I'd end up coming here. So I doubt it was a coincidence. Angie nodded slightly.
なら立花も原山に返す言葉がないわなアルトがいることを知っててここに来たわけだろ
I guess so. Suddenly, Angie's expression turned serious.
なあアルトって立花のことどう思ってるんだ
What do I think of her? I don't know. Aruto seems to want to define the current relationship. If I was in his shoes, I would probably be curious too about what the hell we are. But the fact that she denied that it's gonna be a romantic relationship means that if I was in his shoes, I probably wouldn't care at all. Yeah, we're just gonna be friends then. Huh. My voice cracked. What's that supposed to mean? I have no idea what you're getting at.
今回の試合ってさインターハイなんだよ
Angie's voice was subdued. That's what your nationals are called, right? Angie nodded. In short, it was the equivalent of Koshien in baseball.
立花にとって重要な試合だ勝てばあいつが日本一になる
I know what an inter-high is. I watch Yomoshi pedal.
うちって強豪って言われてるけど個人組手での全国制覇は何年もしてないんだよ
At that, Angie lifted his head and smiled faintly.
悪いなんか飲み物ある
He was probably trying to change the mood. Ah, sorry about that. I brought 2 glasses and some chilled barley tea from the fridge back to the table.
サンキュサンキュ
Angie spoke in a light-hearted tone as he took a glass. I then poured barley tea into it. Man, Tachibana really is strong. Angie chuckled.
強いよあいつは努力して強くなったんだ原山だって文句を言うけど認めてるよ
I answered with a nod. I had nothing in my life I could devote myself to like that. I don't think the two should be there. On top of that, I knew nothing about what sports clubs were like. I simply chose to listen to what Angie had to say. Don't be too down on yourself, Aruto, because let's be real. Most high schoolers probably don't have, something that they actually enjoy and really focus their time into. I mean, I'd say most high schoolers wouldn't have this sort of motivation and drive that Tachibana has towards
あいつも
something.
別に雑に場所を決めたわけじゃないと思うんだよ。あいつはさ、
For a while, Angie simply gazed down at the barley tea swing in his hands.
アルトがここにいるって知ってて、それで自分の一番大事な試合の準備を整える場所にここを選んだんだよ。
So, what is it that you're trying to say, Angie? Stop talking in riddles and go straight to the point. In the end, he never took a sip and just quietly put the glass back on the table.
それは知っておいてやってくれよ。アルトがここにいるのは偶然じゃない。
What the hell do you want me to do? I barely know anything about karate. What does she expect me to do here? What are you expecting me to do? You guys are very cryptic.
偶然なわけがない。あいつがアルトのいる場所を選んだんだ。
Angie, about Tachibana, are you? Angie lifted a hand to cut me off, a faint smile on his lips.
言わなくていい。
But, what, you like her? And then because she likes me, you're kind of putting me on the spot? You're making me feel awkward right now.
大会が終わるまで余計なことをする気はない。それに、あいつとどうこうなる仲じゃないのは俺が一番よくわかってる。
I mean, you don't know that. Have you tried? It's not really the issue here, is it?
そういう問題なんだ。強豪校なんだよ、うちの部は。女子だけな。
With a self-mocking smile, Angie finally raised the barley tea to his lips. He gulped loudly, downing more than half in one go. Just as Angie put down his glass, the front door swung open. Amane-san's figure came into view. Then I noticed Tachibana behind her. Yesterday's group was back together.
よ、いらっしゃい。
Angie spoke in a lighthearted tone. You know, it's a good thing I never had this sort of thing happening when I was in high school. I feel like it's just like annoying and also confusing. Having like some sort of romance triangle or whatever.
エリがあまりにも言われっぱなしで腹立ったから連れてきた。
Because I do feel like when we're younger, we're a lot less honest with our feelings. I mean, not this. I was also a lot less honest with my feelings, but it was more so that I wasn't really feeling anything at the time, to be honest. Like, so my honesty was... I don't even know what to be honest about because I was so numb emotionally back then. Angie put on a wry smile while Tachibana looked downcast. Amane-san kicked off her shoes without using her hands.
バスから降りた瞬間から感じ悪かったけど、昨日から何なのあれ。一応空手部の皆さんは全員お客様だから、私もおとなしくしてるんだけど。
As if venting everything she'd been bottling up to the high ceiling, Amane-san plopped heavily down on the floor. Why didn't they change Tachibana's expression there? She was the one that's, you know, kind of grumpy. But now it's only Sari that's grumpy. And without the slightest hesitation, she picked up one of the mushroom-shaped chocolates Angie had brought and popped it into her mouth.
私もキノコ派。ちなみにだけど。
I don't see those mushroom chocolates there. I only see snacks, or I only see like savory snacks. That detail was so trivial and unrelated, it might as well have been the definition of incidental. Maybe it's that thing where it's like sort of chocolatish and then the green color box, but we can't see the insides. Tachibana's side.
いろいろあるのよ、私にも。ついでに言うと、あのアキっていう子にもさ、いろいろあるの。何それ、エリそんな感じだったっけ？うじうじしすぎじゃない？
I agree. So what if she has something to deal with? You also have something to deal with. All of us have something to deal with. But we don't lash out on people.
18だよ、私たち。もう子供じゃない。そりゃうじうじもするよ。
No, I actually do think being wishy-washy is stupid. Instead of being wishy-washy, we should be confrontational if it's something that we really do not like.
むしろ子供の頃のエリに戻ってる気がするけど。
At the very least, if we know that we are correct, you know. Being confrontational just like what Aki there was doing, it's stupid because like I said, the reason why she was being confrontational is because one, sure, she does not like Tachibana, but that's because she herself feels inferior to her, right? It's not from a good place, that confrontational feeling. It's not from a logical place.
強くなったんでしょ？エリが一番強いんでしょ今は。ぶっ飛ばせばいいじゃん、あんな嫌なやつ。
Yeah, if I were her, I probably would have just said, you know what, 1v1 me, bitch. If I win, you can. If I win, I can do whatever I want. If you win, you can do whatever you want. Rule with an iron fist. That's what I would do.
あれ、話通じるタイプじゃないでしょ。何のために強くなったの？
Watching Amane-san rattle on, Tachibana smiled weakly.
ムカつく相手をぶっ飛ばすためじゃないのは確か。サリも日本に帰ってきてから変わったよ。もっとおとなしくなかった？日本人の感覚失ってるんじゃない？
Angie and I exchanged glances as the two argued. I could tell we were both feeling the same awkwardness. Then, we all fell silent, save for the sound of Amane-san munching on her snacks. I raised my hand timidly. Everyone's eyes turned to me. So, did you grow up abroad or something, Amane-san? Amane-san let out a small sigh.
そんなにいいもんじゃない。学校にもろくに行けなくて、折よく親が海外で仕事することになったからついていっただけ。
What, because she talks in English sometimes? Those are not really good English either, though.
エリの言ったことは半分合ってる。
Amane-san stopped mid-sentence, then met my eyes head on. What did she say? What did Tachibana say? Changed to ever since you came back to Japan. Okay, there we go. Lost your Japanese touch.
心が強くなったの、私。それだけ。じゃあ、その方法を教えてよ。私も強くなりたいよ。
I really don't think people who say that they're strong are actual strong people. So sorry saying that there. Yeah. That's most people that you know that are strong. That's not from their own perspective. Other people say that. Tachibana spoke with a self-deprecating smile. Amane-san's gaze shifted back to Tachibana.
目的があるから、過去の後悔と決別したいの。そのために帰ってきた。
That is just overconfidence, sorry, and not necessarily strength.
だか
If
ら
you think that that's strength.
弱いままではいられなかった。エリー、自分で変わるしかないんだよ。私たちのせいなんだから。
I don't know if you guys hear some of the crackling sound sometimes because I'm hearing some sort of crackle at times on my headphones.
だからエリもここに来たんでしょ。
Tachibana lowered her gaze, nodding weakly a few times.
そう。つかず離れずの中途半端な時間、終わらせに来たんでしょ。なら、やることは一つじゃないの。
Yeah, you hear that? I don't know if you guys hear that. Tachibana smiled slightly, then closed her eyes.
もちろん、わかってる。
Might just be my headphones though. She said, opening them again, then turning her gaze toward me.
あると、お願いが一つあるんだけど、聞いてくれる？
Her smile was both wistful and uncertain. One thing was certain, it didn't look happy. A favor?
次の試合、私が勝ったら、一つだけ何でも言うこと聞いてほしいの。
Anything?
そう、何でも。
Is this how she's gonna try to do the whole boyfriend-girlfriend thing? So basically, you're asking a favor to ask another favor? If you already know what it is, wouldn't it be faster to just sell me?
それじゃダメなの。
Tachibana spoke firmly.
私が試合に勝つ。アルトは私の言うことを聞いてくれる。
Angie, being the way he is, probably already knows what this favor is gonna be.
それが大切なの。約束してくれない？
I held Tachibana's gaze, then thought for a moment. Her expression was more serious than I'd ever seen. She wasn't joking around. And it must have meant something, at least to her. In that case, my answer was already set. With a slight smile, Angie began to speak.
おいおい、次の試合ってお前インターハイじゃないかよ。
Tachibana nodded.
私、日本一になるから。そしたら約束守ってね、アルト。
Alright, I promise. That was my answer. Tachibana responded with a slight smile.
それからサリ、
Tachibana locked her eyes on Amane-san. Amane-san tilted her head slightly. Tachibana then continued speaking.
今度は応援して。心の底から応援して。私、サリに応援してほしい。親友の勝つ姿なら見に行く。負けるところは見たくない。意外に涙もろいから、私。
With a trace of satisfaction in her smile, Amane-san reached for the snacks Angie had brought.
いいよ。それでいい。二人とも約束したからね。
Tachibana rose to her feet and Angie followed after her, both heading back to their respective rooms. Still sitting on the floor, Amane-san stretched wide. She let out a long, cat-like yawn. Tonight, it's my turn to ask the questions.
何？眠くないの、ハルト君。
Honestly, sleep was the last thing on my mind. You and Tachibana are childhood friends, right?
そうだよ。
And I'm sure you two will still be close even in the future.
うん。
Amane-san gazed vacantly at the high ceiling. Then you must remember, right? Whether Tachibana won the tournament, whether she really became the best in Japan. Her gaze didn't budge. She simply kept watching the ceiling fan spin lazily. Eventually, Amane-san laid it out loud and clear.
エリは勝つよ。絶対に勝つ。だって、あんなに強くなったんだもん。
Is that a wish, or is that the actual event? Amane-san almost sounded like she was trying to convince herself. I smiled faintly as I looked at Amane-san's absent-minded expression. She then turned to me dissatisfied.
疑ってる？
I believe what you've said about my future, at least to some extent. But when it comes to Tachibana's match, I can't help but feel you don't actually know how it ends.
どうして？
Because you seem anxious.
私が？
Amane-san's voice was unusually loud. I mean, not really loud, more like she was surprised. She then brushed my remark aside with a laugh.
まさか。
I'll go watch the match too. Let's cheer her on together.
なんか腹立つ。わかった。じゃあ予言する。それも2つ。
Two? Amane-san raised her index finger toward me.
1つ目、明日空手部にとっての試練がある。というより、ちょっとしたアクシデント。人の命には関わらないから安心して。
An accident?
2つ目、
Cutting me off, Amane-san lifted a second finger.
それでもエリは勝つ。勝ってアルト君はエリの願いを叶えてあげる。それが私の知ってる2人の馴れ初め。
You saying that is very annoying though. She was clearly trying to hide the fact about what the favor was and you just tell it straight up. What a very... You're a snake. That's what you are. Got together. Amane-san chuckled softly. She was clearly trying to be discreet about it because Arto is a dense motherfucker. And you just spoiled the thing.
そうやって2人は結ばれる。エリのこと好きなんでしょ、アルト君。
Man, I really don't like this chick. After lying down, I stared at the ceiling for a while. Oh, and they changed the text box thing. I couldn't sleep. To distract myself, I pulled out my phone and checked for any messages from Mom. When I asked how Tokyo was doing, all I got back was, everything's good. There wasn't even a single photo from the Czech Republic. I smiled. It was just like Mom to give such a half-baked reply. She wrote, how about you? Getting along with Amane-san? So I replied, my whole tiny circle of friends is here. My whole tiny circle of friends is here. I think that should still be R. I got a reply, what do you mean? I just sent back, I'll tell you when I'm home. And turned my eyes back to the ceiling. Yeah, there was a crackling there. There's a pop on my headphones. Amane-san's words still echoed in my mind. Me and Tachibana together. I couldn't deny that, somewhere deep down, a part of me wanted it to happen. And yet, for some reason, I felt uncertain. As I traced that uncertainty to its root, what lingered was the image of Amane-san's earnest face as she played the piano. I lifted my hand into my line of sight. I gazed at the back of my hand as it hovered between me and the ceiling, then flipped it over to study my palm. Closing my eyes, I recalled the sight of Amane-san playing the piano under the pale blue moonlight. My fingers began to stumble into a clumsy dance, but something felt off. What was this discomfort I felt? For a while, I simply let my 10 fingers dance on their own. I then opened my eyes slowly. My left hand, it was the one I lifted in front of me. What was this awkwardness inside me? Why did it only ever wash over me with Amane-san's performance? Finding no answer, I wrapped my left fingers with my right hand. As if lulling a child to sleep, I waited for my fingers to settle down. The reason I felt uncertain about a future with Tachibana was because Amane-san already occupied a place in my heart. When I closed my eyes, I could see the curve of her back as she reached toward the keys, and the tears that slid down as she gazed at me from above. I remembered the warmth of her embrace, and the earnest look on her face as she listed the things she liked about me. Whether she actually knew the future or not, I couldn't tell. For all I knew, she might have inherited some mysterious power from her grandmother. That was far beyond what I could grasp. But one thing was certain. Somewhere out of my sight, Amane-san was doing everything she could to set things in motion for me. She brought me here, and perhaps even brought Tachibana, who might know my past so I could confront it. It was clear she was doing it for my sake and meant no harm. Is it really for your sake or is it really for her sake? You never know. No, surprisingly, it's not the end of the chapter. It was now my 4th day here. The owner hummed to himself as he cooked up mapo tofu for lunch. Ooh, mapo tofu, one of my favorites. He was working a heavy-looking, authentic Chinese wok, like it was nothing. The owner was always in high spirits when he cooked, maybe because his huge portions were always finished so cleanly. By now, I'd learned the layout of the dining hall. After all, there were only so many dishes we ever used. It always came down to either piling it high on a big flat plate, or piling it high on a big deep one. As I was carrying the stack of deep plates from the cupboard, I heard loud footsteps approaching. Oh, the accident thing. At her cry, all 3 of us who had been preparing lunch froze in place. Horiyama-san stood there breathing heavily, still in her gi. Amane-san's expression went blank. But I thought you know about the accident. Amane-san echoed back. Amane-san and I exchanged glances. Damn, fractured it? She must have put so much power into it. An accident. Amane-san's prophecy from last night came flooding back to my mind. The owner too stopped cooking. Amane-san shot the words out and bolted. Hariyama-san and I followed right behind. Why is she still irritated or frustrated about this? I thought she knew about this. In the gym, the club members had formed a circle along the wall. At the center was Tachibana. Her expression was strained.
エリ、
Amane-san ran up to her.
話は聞いた。大丈夫なの？ちょっとね、足の親指痛めただけ。大したことじゃないの。
I looked at Tachibana's foot. Her right big toe was swollen and inflamed.
その判断は医者にしてもらって、そこまで連れてくから。
Tachibana smiled faintly at her words.
確かに、そりゃそうか。
Tachibana stood up, leaning against the wall.
アキ、
Being called out, Hariyama-san cast an uneasy glance at Tachibana.
練習止まらないように、アキが見てあげて。あんたが言ったでしょ。団体型だって試合に出るんだからって。こんな時に支障ぶるの、ずるいよ。
Hariyama-san's words were confrontational, but her tone was gentle. Beneath the surface, I could sense their hearts were in sync.
アンジーは？あいつどこを突き歩いてるの？自主練サボってんじゃないの？さては。
Tachibana spoke in a light tone.
探しとく。親に連絡は？実家近いんでしょ？しなくていい。二人とも働いてるし、行ったら絶対来ちゃう。どうせ安静にしろって言われるだけ。わかるでしょ、アキ。そうだね。
What's the point of training hard that you actually hurt yourself like this? Hariyama-san answered with a smile.
みんなのことよろしくね、アキ。サリ、悪いけど肩貸してくれる？
But I guess that's the mentality of, people who want to be the best. So they gotta train with their maximum effort, right? I mean, I train with my maximum effort too, but I'm still very aware of risks of injury. So I would do the maximum, but with safety in mind too.
肩だけじゃなくて車も貸してほしいんでしょ。こんな山奥から病院まで歩かせるつもり？骨折ってんのよ、こっちは。それだけ憎まれ口叩ければ大丈夫。アルト君、一緒に来て。
We each took one of Tachibana's shoulders to support her. Outside the gym, the compact car was waiting directly ahead, the owner sitting at the wheel. We seated Tachibana in the rear.
アルト君、隣座ってあげて。
Amane-san insisted. I circled around the car and slipped in from the opposite side. From the gym, Hariyama-san came running out.
エリー、これ、財布、この中でしょ。
Hariyama-san held out a backpack. It was the bag Tachibana used for school.
あ、そうだった。ありがとう。それから、これも。私のだけど。
Hariyama-san handed Tachibana a light hoodie. Right, she'd stick out as she went to the hospital in a karate gi.
助かる。お守りにする。よく言うよ。ねえ、危険しないでよ。しないよ。大丈夫。冗談蹴りで勝つから。
Hariyama-san nodded and stepped back. Amane-san closed the door on Tachibana's side. Amane-san then bent down to the driver's window.
オーナー、あとよろしく。
The owner nodded from the driver's seat. You're not coming, Amane-san. I called out from the back seat.
施設側の人間が誰もいなくなるのはまずいでしょ。それに。
A trial to overcome. A little accident. When I cut in, Amane-san blinked in surprise, then nodded.
そういうこと。精一杯隣の女の子を励ましてあげて。骨折ってるらしいから。折れてはない。多分、ひび。でも、自分で歩いてはいけないでしょ。
I think broken bones usually take a week to reconnect itself.
ど田舎だから。
Amane-san answered with a smile and gave the car door a tight lap. Or sorry, a light tap. The car made a small turn and pulled away from the lodge, heading for the station. Once Amane-san and Hariyama were out of sight, the smile on Tachibana's face vanished, tightening into a strained look.
先に病院には電話してあるからね。 整形外科の外来。
The owner had his hands on the wheel the entire time.
ありがとうございます。
For a while, it was completely silent, save for the sound of the car's engine. Tachibana had draped Hariyama-san's hoodie over her shoulders. Does it hurt? Tachibana shot me an exasperated look.
当たり前でしょ。痛くないわけないじゃん。なんかもっと面白い話できないの？気が紛れるような。
Not really someone who's like that area. Of course not. I'm bad at this kind of stuff. You know that better than anyone.
そっか、そうだね。
Tachibana smiled faintly, then turned her gaze toward the window. Her expression was unreadable.
何でもいいから話しかけててよ。シーンとしてるよりはマシだからさ。
You're putting me on the spot here. Even that was tough in its own way. You're from Nagano like Amane-san, right? Where's your house?
あのペンションよりはもう少し街寄り。でもアクセスの悪さはどっこい。車がないと何もできない。
Did you two go to the same school?
そう、途中までね。
I recalled their conversation last night. Amane-san went abroad, right?
そう、ヨーロッパだったはず。ですよ。
Oh, sorry about that. Didn't think that she would actually ask the owner.
サリの父親ももうすぐ戻ってくるのかな。
Oh, so her dad's still overseas.
うん、サリだけ先に帰ってきたみたい。ずいぶん長いこと長野から離れてたから心配してたんだけどね。
Oh, this is Nagano. Okay, Kamakura was the previous town we were at. This is Nagano.
でも安心したよ。昔の友達とも仲良さそうでね。サリは幸せ者だ。
The owner then chuckled. For a while, only the sound of the engine filled the car, until it slowed to a stop at the red light.
ね、アルト。
She didn't look away from the window. Yeah?
私、勝てるかな？
I turned my face toward her. The car started moving again, just as slowly as it had stopped.
勝てると思う？
I mean, that depends on you. With that, she finally turned to face me. I do.
ありがとう。
Tachibana said, smiling faintly as she turned her gaze back to the window. I'm not irresponsible enough that I would say something like I do. It all depends on the person themselves. I don't lie to people just to reassure them about something. The general hospital's parking lot was packed. It was the liveliest facility I had seen since coming to this town. Although in this case, I wasn't really sure if lively was the right word. The advisor was already in the waiting room. It turned out the club members had contacted him in advance. He gave the owner and me a courteous thank you, then offered Tachibana a few words of encouragement. He didn't look like the type, but perhaps he was a kind person at heart. Thanks to the owner calling ahead, Tachibana didn't have to wait long for her appointment. After a quick examination and an x-ray, it turned out she had a clear hairline fracture in her big toe. The doctor's advice was simple: rest and wait for it to heal on its own. Nothing else was required, and she wouldn't need anything as drastic as crutches. When's your competition? 2 days?
あさって。明日は開会式と秋たちの形の試合。
The day after tomorrow. Tachibana smiled and nodded.
まあ、気合で出るしかないね。強めの痛み止めもらって、ガチガチにテーピングして、出る。
I don't think that's a good idea. But at least it wasn't serious, just like what Sari said. The right back was quiet for a time. The countryside sure has its charms. I murmured while gazing out at the low-roofed townscape streaming past the rear window. Tachibana didn't answer. I glanced over at her sitting next to me. Head bowed and eyes closed. Her head swayed with the rhythm of the car's motion. Tachibana? No response. A lock of hair had slipped loose from her ponytail and brushed across her cheek. As the car took a curve, Tachibana's body slowly leaned over toward me. I felt Tachibana's relaxed weight against my arm. Her cheek was resting on my shoulder. Her warmth and softness reached me through the thin cotton fabric that separated us. Across the rearview mirror on the windshield, my eyes met the owners in the driver's seat. A gentle smile rose in his eyes.
疲れてるのかな。いろいろ大変そうだ。
Tachibana stayed asleep all the way to the lodge. As the car began backing into the lot, her cheek slowly lifted from my shoulder. It's strange how people always seem to wake up the moment a car reaches its destination.
あれ
I think it's because the rocking is actually, making you feel comfortable. And once the car stops rocking, you actually don't feel the comfort anymore. Kind of like when you're like a baby and you're being rocked by your mom, right? So half asleep, she looked around, and when you're stopped being rocking, you sort of notice that, and sometimes you would actually cry again. I noticed a strange fatigue had settled in me. I must have been keeping myself tense so her cheek wouldn't slip from my shoulder. After getting out of the car, we watched Tachibana and the advisor walk off, their backs shrinking into the distance of the parking lot. Tachibana was walking on her own now. Maybe the painkillers had kicked in. She was still limping a little though. The sky was still bright, but it was already time to start making dinner.
アルト君、ちょっと休んでていいよ。サリにも言っといて。夕食簡単なものにしちゃうから。
With that, the owner made his way toward the dining hall. I decided to return to my room for now. As I passed in front of the gabbled admin building, I caught sight of a familiar profile in one of its windows. It was Angie. The window was open. Angie. At my voice, Angie turned my way, his face weary with exhaustion. I made my way over to him. He was alone in the laundry room, where a row of large washing machines stood. Doing some laundry?
夏だしな。男の方がすぐ汗かくのよ。
In the circular glass door behind Angie, white clothes were spinning round and round. I'll try to listen to the recording here and see whether or not those crackling sounds are actually in the final recording. I wonder what's going on. I don't think I heard this previously when I was playing this. Nor did I hear this when I was playing Shrift yesterday, and I played that for a good 4 hours. Following them with my eyes, I realized they were karate gi. What a mess. Tachibana got hurt.
聞いたよ。
Angie said with a faint smile. Unlike his usual smile, this one felt strangely mature, tinged with loneliness.
俺ってさ、どうもそういう時にいてやれないんだよな。
What were you doing anyway? He said, scratching the back of his head, before breaking into his usual carefree smile.
それで、なんだって医者は。
They showed us the crack on the x-ray, gave her some painkillers, and that was it.
じゃあ出るんだな、橘は。
Looks like it. Hey, the tournament's the day after tomorrow, right? A crack's still a fracture. Can she really compete like that? After a low groan, he went on.
安静にするに越したことはない。もちろん。でもインターハイだったら、ほとんどの選手が出るだろうな。3年ならなおさら。
Aren't we second years? Is that how it is?
折れてるのと違って、足の指とか肋骨とかのひびって放っておくしかないんだよ。
But they did tell her to rest.
医者が言わないわけないだろう。
Angie said in exasperation, then cast his gaze off into the distance.
橘、組手だからな。
Meaning?
空手の試合って大きく分けると2つあるのよ。組手と型。組手が対戦で、型が演武。
That made sense to me.
試合に出ることは可能だと思う。顧問も多分止めない。前例はあるし、俺でも多分出る。でもやっぱ怖いだろ。痛い足を相手に叩きつけるのは。
Yeah, that's true. I recall Tachibana's high kick from yesterday's practice.
選手生命がかかってるとかそういう話じゃないけどさ。激痛が走ると分かってて蹴らないといけない。その恐怖と実際の痛みを乗り切れるかどうかだな。
The Inter-High. That's a tournament that decides the best in Japan, right?
そうだよ。
He laughed and nodded. Can she even win like that? That's just...
どうだろうな。立花が出るって言ってんなら応援するしかないだろ。
Not true. I guess.
来るだろ、アルト。
Huh?
試合だよ。駅の方だ。声出してやってくれよ。そうしたら勝てるよ、立花は。
Sorry about that, Angie. He cast a glance at the dryer behind him, fell silent for a while, then said quietly,
乾かねえな。
I mean, how long have you been waiting for it? Yep, that's the end of the chapter. So yeah, about an hour just as usual. I was wondering why the end of the chapter was getting a bit late. I'm gonna guess that in 2 more chapters we're probably gonna see the end, or maybe in chapter 8. But right now we're in chapter 6, right? That was chapter 5. There's a bit more drama involved in this current chapter, but I do think that the drama in this game is not that big, which is kind of nice, in that the scale of the drama is just very, very small and compact. They don't make a big deal out of the whole like drama thing. Or I say drama, but basically the what's the word? The driving factor that makes the story going, right? But okay. With that said, I'm gonna go call it an episode right here. So yeah, how do I say my game again? There we go. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Give this video a like if you guys like it. Sub if you guys haven't. Patreon will be getting these episodes early access along with everything uncensored. But yeah, nothing is uncensored in this game. I just say that because I really haven't really been saying that for quite a while, guys. Because all of the playthroughs that I'm currently doing on Patreon are actually not going to be on YouTube. Fate Stay Night and then Shrift. And yeah, just wanted to make sure that my what's the word? My my memory, my body language, not my body language. God damn it, I'm brain farting right now. My muscle memory, there we go. My muscle memory when it comes to doing my outro is still there. And also for people on YouTube that aren't on Patreon just yet, feel free to become a free member because that's gonna be where I put the first episode previews of future playthroughs. Okay, that's the end. I'll see you guys next week. See ya.